Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sonnet, the owner and creator behind Sonnet's Garden Blooms, and in today's video, it's that time of the month again. It is the unboxing of the Maker's Box. Now, this is the December box, and you guys, I honestly cannot believe that my box is now officially 6 months old. Can you? We have been doing this for over 6 months. So first and foremost, I want to thank each and every one of you. I appreciate your love and support and feedback that I've been receiving on my Maker's Box. So let's start the unboxing. Every month when you open the Maker's Box, it is going to be like opening a Christmas present. And what a perfect opportunity to have this shown up in December during the holidays, right? You're gonna see a postcard first and foremost, and the postcard is going to be filled with a ton of information. So on the front, I talk about what the Maker's Box is about, or where my inspiration is going for that month. Then on the back, you're gonna find out what's in the box, so the paper names and what paints, and then a little bit more of some inspiration on the bottom. So let's start with the December's box has a vintage and rustic feel to it. Well, I have a typo. I just discovered a typo. It says 1800 silhouettes with a rustic vibe. I think it's supposed to say it has silhouettes with a rustic vibe. Some of the best things in life are old, loved, and rescued. Upcycle them. So I apologize for the typo, but I don't know where the 1800 silhouettes came from. On the back, you're gonna find out that there is a sheet of vintage silhouettes. So right when I started doing my lives, I received a lot of feedback that people wanted to have like vintage silhouettes. It's so hard to find them. So Royce was kind enough to create her own vintage silhouette. So I'm so excited about that. The other is called Rustic Pinecone, and I think that one can just be used all year round. It just has just a really rustic feel to it. It's got some greenery with pine cones on it. And then the two from the painted photographer are called Heavenly Sign and Mistletoe Kiss. So those are the papers for this month. You're gonna rip open your gift. Here is the silhouettes. And then here is a rustic pine cone. So I love it. And then I am gonna show you. Here is Heavenly Sign. You guys, I love cardinals. When I see a cardinal, it reminds me of my grandma. And then the other one is called Mistletoe Kiss. So it's some mistletoe. From there, I curate the colors based on the papers that Connie and Royce create. And this month, you guys, it was perfect. So I picked Bayberry from Fusion. It's a beautiful green. It matches with both papers actually perfectly. Coal Black, again, I think it just goes so well with like the silhouettes. And then with the DIY paint, I chose White Swan. And then I also chose, this one is Aviary. So those are the two colors. So Aviary and White Swan. Beautiful. And then I chose Lantern from Sweet Pickins. And I think all these colors are absolutely gorgeous together. Now, my bonus item that I always include in the box, you guys, this month, a friend of mine, Cindy from CNC DIY Factory, her and her husband, Chris, own the business. And I told them what I was, like, I actually was taking a shower, washing my hair. I came up with this idea. I immediately texted her after I was done and I said, I have an idea. Can you take your laser and can you cut out a silhouette? And she's like, give me an hour and I'll get back to you. And I'm like, well, it doesn't need to be done in an hour, but she did it. And She created the most beautiful little silhouettes with like this round piece on the back. I loved them, you guys, and they just go so perfectly with the paper. So that is what's in this month's box. For your bit of inspiration on the bottom, a thing about being vintage, it never goes out of style, and that is a true statement. So that is your box this month, so let's dive into the video. For project 1, I decided to start working with the paper called Silhouette. Royce does such an amazing job taking my vision and creating it. I had reached out to her and told her, could you create a paper that had vintage silhouettes? And she said, absolutely. So that is what she came up with. I am then going to use the color Coal Black by Fusion. So once I receive the papers, I then choose which colors will be in the box with those papers. And Coal Black was definitely the perfect addition. I'm going to apply just one even coat of Coal Black to the entire base of this wood frame, and then we're going to start playing around with the paper. I was inspired by gallery walls, and I thought it would be really neat to have all different silhouettes on a gallery wall. Well, why not just downsize it a bit and put all different silhouettes and images on that board? So what I'm going to do is go in, I'm going to cut out every single one of these silhouettes, and I could have done it two ways. I could have used a scissors like I'm doing, or I could have taken a paintbrush and did the water method where you just do a water outline around it and then tear it. I wanted more of a clean image, so then I went in with the scissors and I cut out each of the silhouettes. Now, a gallery wall has all different textures and depth and all of that good stuff. And because we're working at such a miniature scale, what I've decided to do is I grabbed frames 2, and then the conservatory labels. And I am going to cast with resin a bunch of different frames and labels. I'm really excited about this, and I think it's going to just add so much to the whole look and feel of this project. If you haven't used resin before, super easy. There's part A and part B, and what you want to do is you want to measure it or weigh it, and you want to fill half of it with part A and then the other half with part B. So it's a 50-50 mixture, and if you get this wrong, you guys, it can really ruin your entire batch of resin. I also use these silicone containers, and it's so nice because they're reusable and the resin just pulls right out of them. So I go in and I mix a batch, an 8-ounce batch, and I do 4 ounces part A, 4 ounces part B, and you have about 10 minutes to work with this before it starts turning. So it's pretty quick, so you have to be pretty efficient. So I get the part A in, I pour the part B in, and I have a stir stick. I mix it up, and then I start pouring. And at first I'm like, okay, what do I want? I know I want all the small frames from frames 1. And then I decide for another project, I am going to use frames 2. So I also poured those in, and then I grabbed a couple of the conservatory labels. After roughly 10 minutes, it starts turning white, and you will know when you can pull these out, and they just pop right out of the molds. And if there was any overflow, just pop it off like that, and it really, you can't even tell that it overflowed a little bit. I do that for all of the molds, and now it's time to decorate these babies up. Fusion Mineral Paint has a metallic line, and this is called Gold. I am going in and applying one even coat of gold, then coming back and I'm applying a second coat. And then the coverage after 2 coats is really what I was looking for. Now that they're totally dry, I'm grabbing 2 of the silhouettes, and we're going to decorate those frames up with the silhouettes. The first one is this oval piece, and I lay the silhouette on top, and I just take my fingernail and I just rub my nail around to know where I need to cut it. And typically what I would do is I would decoupage the piece of paper on and then take a piece of sandpaper and I would sand off the excess. Well, that is not possible. So this is what I chose to do. It just kind of like creates a little crease so I know exactly where to cut. And I took my scissors and I just cut around that crease and it was a perfect fit. Now that I did that, I am going to grab the other silhouette, and this one I am going to put a frame over the top of it. So I need to figure out where I need to cut off the excess. So I just take the other side of my paintbrush and I just traced around so I knew where to cut, and then again used my scissors to cut away the excess. And then I'm going to go back to that original one and we're going to start using liquid patina from DIY. And I love using liquid patina with both my decoupage paper from Royce and my rice paper from The Painted Photographer. And I am going to do what I always do. I'm going to use a starter strip, lay the paper down into the starter strip, and then work my way down. And this helps position it properly where you know exactly where you want your piece and it stays put and alleviate a lot of those wrinkles, guys. Next, I'm going to take coal black and I am painting the center of all the little frames, and from the conservatory labels, I'm going to paint both of those two pieces, the black on the inside as well. And this is just going to pull it all together. Yes, I don't have a silhouette, but it has the black very similar to that of a silhouette. So I'm going to let those dry and then we're going to come back and we are going to finish off the frames. I decided to add a bit of dark wax from DIY. If you haven't used the wax from DIY paint, you guys, you are missing out. It is buttery soft and I absolutely love working with it. I start off with the clear. It just gives me a little bit more control over the darker wax, and you can tell this is my dark wax brush, so some of the dark wax is already coming off and I haven't even dug into the dark wax yet, but I want just a little bit of that dark wax to fill in all the crevices, and I do that with each of these little frames as well. Now that all the pieces are ready, I laid it all out and I'm really liking how it's looking. But what I need to do is make sure that each of the pieces of decoupage paper are going to pop off this dark background. So I flip each one over and I paint them with white swan. And I do recommend, if you want your decoupage paper to pop off or off whatever project you're putting them on, you either paint the background white, or because I can't paint the background white here, I'm painting the back side of the paper. I'm just applying one even coat to all the pieces, letting them dry, and then we're gonna apply the decoupage paper onto this project. All the pieces are dry. I did not want to move a thing, you guys, because I kept thinking, what if I forget how I had them? So I left everything in place, and once they dried, I just put them right back in place. And now I'm flipping them all over, and now we're going to use liquid patina again, and we are going to apply them to the project. Then one by one, what I'm going to do is flip the piece of decoupage paper over. I'm going to add a bit of liquid patina and then smooth it out. And I'll do that to each one of these until I have them all in place. I am going to seal the entire piece with a coat of liquid patina, and then the other pieces we are going to glue on. Now I'm going to use Titebond to glue all the pieces on. I'm going to place everything where they were, and then one by one, I'm just going to add a little bit of Titebond to the back side and then place it in place. And now keep in mind, you don't want too much Titebond oozing out. So I do recommend just leaving the Titebond in the center, or like squirting some in the center, taking your finger and then feathering it to the edges, because you don't want want it to ooze out, it just caused much more of a mess and more cleanup in the end. For project 2, the bonus item in my maker's box this month was this really beautiful silhouette that was hand cut from Cindy and Chris from CNC DIY Factory. What I decided to do was use a frame that I had found at the Goodwill bins, and it didn't have a backing, but it was beautiful. It was like a really vintage looking gold, and it had these two little balls for feet. I just thought it was super cute, and I thought I could upcycle it. So I went into my scrap wood and I cut out that piece of wood that I'm painting white. I'm going to let that dry, and then we're going to paint the two pieces of the silhouette. Now, when I cut out all the silhouettes from my first project, I had all this leftover decoupage paper. And you guys, I never throw away a good piece of decoupage paper. So I decided to use just a chunk of it. And I looked for, Royce had created like all this like crackle goodness in here. So I tried to find a piece that had some crackle goodness. It had a bit of like, like rustic look feel to it. And that is the piece that I plan on using, and I'm going to decoupage that over the backboard. I do lay down the next few pieces just to make sure I have it exactly how I want it before I apply the liquid patina. And again, I'm using liquid patina, which is my go-to decoupage medium. I have the piece of decoupage paper perfectly in place. I flip the top back, and then I start applying the liquid patina. And then I work my way down. And again, this just really holds it in place, make sure that it alleviates a lot of those wrinkles. And I'm going to set this piece aside to dry, and then we're going to come back and we're going to put this all together. Next, I'm going to take coal black, and I am going to paint the little silhouette head the coal black color. I'm just applying one even coat of coal black from Fusion Mineral Paint. I'm going to let that dry, and then we're going to work on the next round. Now, I wanted the round to match the first paper that we decoupaged on, and honestly there was a little bit of like a brownish tone in there, so I decided to use Woodwick, and that was not part of the maker's box this month. And I'm applying just one even coat of Woodwick to the piece, and I liked the coverage, but I almost wanted to create more of like a stained look versus a full coverage look. So after I apply one even coat and I was looking at it, I decided to just mist it with my spray mister, and then take a piece of paper towel and just dab away a little bit of the water or the excess water, and it almost created like a wash versus, or like a stain or like a wash versus like a full covered paint. Now that the first piece is completely dry, I am going to sand away the excess paper. I'm just using a piece of sandpaper, and in a downward motion, I am removing the excess paper. Now let's put this all together. So I take the first round and I apply it to the second round, and then I put the silhouette in there. And you guys, I think this is looking so good. Next, I'm taking Type-On and I'm going to glue all three pieces together, let it sit there, and then after this all sets up, I'm going to take the Type-On and I'm actually going to run a thin line of Type-On all the way around the inside of the frame, and then I'm going to put this in the frame, and the Type-On is actually going to glue this piece in place. For project 3, I found this tobacco basket at Target last year, right in the front of the store where they have like the $1, $3, $5 options. I paid $5 for it. I bought 3 of them. And this one I decided to paint Lantern from Sweet Pickens Milk Paint. If you haven't used the milk paint yet, you guys are definitely missing out. It creates the most beautiful finish. If you are one that does not like brush strokes or brush marks, this gives you the perfect finish. So what you're going to need to do, I like to use warm water. I take 1 scoop of warm water to 1 scoop of the Sweet Pickens milk paint. When it's in the powdered form, it does not go bad. When it's in the liquid form, you do need to use it within like 24 hours. And you want it to be the consistency of a melted milkshake. I did this, and I don't know if I didn't add enough water, but after I let it sit for about 10 minutes, I actually needed to add a little bit more water to it. I just felt like it was way too thick, and I just recommend using like either a whisk or an emergent blender, something to mix it up good. And I use a whisk, and I reuse these. I rinse them off right away, and then I just reuse it. While that's drying, I am going to grab the piece of rice paper called Mistletoe Kiss, and this is done by Connie at the Painted Photographer. She is so crazy talented, you guys. Hand draws each and every one of her designs and then goes in with DIY paint and paints them, and then the last thing that she adds is her signature Connie lines. So I decided I was going to grab just a scrap piece of wood and paint that white. I'm then lining it up, and I'm going to decoupage this piece of rice paper on my scrap piece of wood. I am then, after I get this all done, my vision here is I want to put this in the center of the basket. I'm going to make it a sign, so we're going to hand stamp a saying on here as well. But first, we have to decoupage this on. So what I'm doing is applying just a nice even coat of liquid patina to the top portion of this, and once I get this applied, I like to have a really nice even layer of the liquid patina. I'm going to mist the rice paper as well, and then I'm going to smooth it out. I'm also going to add a bit of the liquid patina over the top of the rice paper, and then I'm going to do this and work my way down. Now that this piece is dry, I'm taking a piece of sandpaper and sanding away the excess. And you guys, that is truly key. You want your paper or your project to be completely dry before you do this step. I didn't show this on camera, but what I did is I finished off the back. I painted it black, and then I added a little bit of black right around the edge of the actual picture. And I am using the Apothecary labels, which is an IOD stamp set. And this one, you guys, is perfect for smalls. It comes with 4 different fonts, a bunch of different labels. It is definitely one of my favorite stamp sets. And what I plan on doing here is hand stamping Kiss Me Under the Mistletoe. And it is so easy to use. I just line up the letters, pick it up with the thin mount, and then ink it up with the permanent ink from IOD, and then stamp. And I just rub all over the back of each of the stamps once I lay it down, just to get a really nice impression. And I do that for all the words. Now it's time to pull this project together. I lay it down in the basket, and I'm loving how it's looking. You can see I painted the back black because you can see the back through the back side. I'm using generic command strips that I picked up at Walmart, and I'm going to put 1 command strip on each side. And I figure out exactly where I need them, and I put them on the long strips going down. And then I do that on, like I said, on 1 on each side. I lay that back down, and this is not going anywhere, guys. For project 4, I'm pulling out the frames from the mold called Frames 2. And you guys, I love how substantial these molds are because you can actually use them for ornaments. You can use them on a fridge, put a magnet on the back. What we're doing today is I'm going to use the largest one, and I am going to take the paper called Heavenly Sigh, and I am going to use that in one of the frames. And I am so excited to showcase this beautiful paper. And so I'm trying to decide, do I want to make this an ornament or do I want to have it be a magnet for my refrigerator? The first thing that I do is I lay down the paper and I take my fingernail and I actually rub my fingernail around the edges, and that's going to show me where I need to cut the paper. After I do that, I just take a scissors and I cut away the excess. And typically what I would normally do is I would apply the decoupage paper and then take a piece of sandpaper and remove the excess. But because I'm using it in a frame, it is very hard to do that. So this is the secondary option. I lay the paper down, make sure it looks like it's a good fit, and then let's continue on with this project. Let's go ahead and decoupage this in the frame, and I do the same thing every single time, you guys. I lay my piece of paper down and then I add a little bit of liquid patina. I do a starter strip to hold it in place. I lay the rice paper back down and then I smooth it out, and I work from the top all the way down. And honestly, you guys, this makes it so easy. It alleviates so many wrinkles. You make sure that your paper does not move, and you are going to be very happy with your results. The next thing I do is I use coal black, and I'm going to paint the entire perimeter coal black. I really think it's going to make the entire image pop out of the frame. For inside the frame, I am using gold again from Fusion Mineral Paint, and this is the metallic gold, and I love it. I think it's just going to be the perfect addition to this. I do apply 2 even coats of the gold. The coverage over the resin with 1 coat isn't the best, so 2 even coats is what I suggest. To finish this project off, I am using DIY's gold gilding wax. I'm putting just a little bit on my finger and I'm rubbing it over all the raised areas. And then this project will be complete. I really think by doing this last addition, it just pulls the entire piece together. Now, what would you do with this? Would you use it as a shelf sitter? Would you use it as an ornament? A magnet on your fridge? There's just so many possibilities. I love using these frames and papers just to create the most unique pieces. For project 5, I actually picked this up at the Goodwill bins. It is from Pottery Barn, and I love that Connie puts 3 different images on her paper. So I'm going to use the larger image, and I am going to decoupage it on the front of this wall pocket. I think it's going to look so beautiful, you guys. What I'm doing is the water method with rice paper. If you want to tear it down or like cut it down, rather than using a scissors and have really a crisp, clean edge, you can just apply a bit of water and it weakens the fibers in the rice paper, and then you can tear it. So I just create a line where I normally would use a scissors, and I just make sure it completely soaks through the paper, and then once it does, I then tear it, and I do that to all 4 sides. Now that I got my paper all tore exactly how I want it, I am going to then apply it to the wall pocket. I'm using liquid patina, and I am going to make sure the paper is exactly where I want it, pull it back, apply a nice even coat of liquid patina, and then take my paintbrush and then smooth it out. And I am going to start on the very top, like I always do, and then work my way down. This is going to help, like I always talk about, alleviate a lot of your wrinkles, make sure your paper doesn't move, and then I'm going to set this aside and let it dry very thoroughly before I continue on. I could have just left it as is, but I thought I wanted to add a bit of something to this. So I am using IOD's transfer called Yuletide, and I am using this little chunk of transfer, but I'm cutting it in half. So remember, your transfers, you can manipulate them however you want. So I am taking a chunk, and I've decided to add a piece of the transfer to the very top of this and a piece of the transfer to the bottom. And if you haven't used a transfer before, they are so easy, you guys. You just peel off that backing and then lay it in place, use your transfer stick, and then just start rubbing. And they go on so easy, and they just add so much to any project. I have the bottom on, and now I'm going to figure out where I want to position it on top. I don't want to cover up any of the bird. It took me a minute to really figure out how I wanted this, but I do the exact same thing on top, and just by adding this one little transfer, it completely just pulls the project together and really takes it up a notch. For project 6, I am using Royce's rustic pine cone, and you guys, I'm going to create a beautiful sign with this. It is so easy to create unique signs with the decoupage paper from Roycycled Treasures, and this paper that you're seeing here can only be found in my maker's box. So each and every month, Royce creates 2 exclusive papers for the maker's box, and then this is one of them. And I want the pine cones on here. I also want some of the greenery, but I want it all the way to the left side because I want to add a saying in here to create a sign. What I'm doing is I am taking my fingernail and I'm just going to rub along the very edges just to make sure I know where I need to cut it with the scissors. And typically I, sand off the excess, but again, we're applying it to an existing sign, so it would be virtually impossible to do that. So I'm taking my scissors and I'm cutting away the excess, and then we're going to take this piece and we're going to decoupage it to the sign. Now, I've had this sign for a bit and I was actually going to use it in another project. Anytime I'm out thrifting and I'm at the bins and I see a good sign that has, like really good bones, no matter what is on it, I grab it because you can upcycle these amazing signs that they're going to be putting into the landfill. So because I already had it scheduled for a different project, and then during the project I nixed it, it is already painted white. So I didn't even have to do that for this project. Now that it's cut, I lay it on in, and I could actually just lay it in, decoupage it down, and this could be finished. It could be a beautiful just picture like this, but we are going to add a saying to the inside. The saying that I chose was welcome. I picked this up a while ago at Hobby Lobby, and it's back in their woodworking section. So I am taking Bayberry from Fusion Mineral Paint.
I am going to paint just the very top of the welcome, the bayberry color. I'm using just a very fine tipped paintbrush and just going in there and applying just one even coat of the bayberry. And you guys, it just looks so good with, that decoupage paper. Let's go ahead and apply the decoupage paper to the sign. And the reason why I like to use white, you guys, I talk about this all the time, is I really want that paper to pop. I hear often like, you don't have to do white in the background, and you guys are absolutely right, you don't. If you want a different look and feel to your piece, you can do whatever color. You could leave it wood, however you want it, but I really like the vibrancy of Royce's paper, so I always am painting it white. I'm applying just one even coat of liquid patina. I am misting my paper to activate the fibers in the paper, and then I'm going to spread the paper out with my paintbrush. I'm just going to rub out all the wrinkles and air bubbles, and then once I get that done, I'm going to lift up that paper and I'm going to apply another coat of liquid patina and then smooth it out and just work my way down. Now that that's drying, I'm using Bayberry from Fusion Mineral Paint, and I'm going to paint the frame Bayberry. And oh, you guys, this really ties the whole piece together. The last step is to glue the welcome onto the sign. Again, I'm using Titebond, you guys. This is my go-to glue, and I love it. I'm so glad that I found Titebond so long ago. And the key really is to apply a very thin layer in the very center of the letters and then smooth it out. You don't want to just glue that Titebond on and then lay it down. What's going to happen is it's going to ooze out, and then you're going to have a huge mess to clean up. So go in light in the center, rub it, like feather it out to the edges, and you won't have that problem. Believe me, I have learned the hard way.
So what did you guys think? I hope you were completely inspired. I hope you'll love this month's box as much as I did creating it. I have so much fun doing this, you guys, and I want to give you different things that you can't find anywhere else. Honestly, those silhouettes, I have been so inspired since, like I said, my first live when people were talking about them. And then if you guys follow Liz Marie Gavin, she does a blog and she curates all these vintage items. She is so into silhouettes and she's got the most beautiful display of them. And I just knew this month's box was going to be absolutely perfect. So I cannot wait to hear what you guys think in the comments. Let me know below. And what was your favorite item? How are you going to use the papers? I cannot wait to see your project. So if you haven't done so yet, head on over to my group page. I have it linked in the description. Get into the group page so you can start sharing what you create with my Makers Box. All right, guys, until the next one, have a great day, and I hope that you are completely inspired. Bye-bye.